Well, good day. This is retired Fire Chief Paul Smith, and welcome to another episode of Marin Fire History. Our guest today is Fire Chief Chris Tubbs, and Chris is here with us today from the Southern Marin Fire Protection District. And I'm glad to chat with him for a little bit about the history of the Southern Marin fire agencies. And now, Southern Marin, under Chris's leadership, has gone from 4 or 5 departments under one flag. So, good morning, Chris, and welcome.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank
Always
you.
great to see you and appreciate the invite.
Well, great. I think what we'd like to do talk a little bit about the history of where we are today, how we got there, and maybe we conclude in a few minutes about kind of where you think you see things going, because I understand you're about ready to ride off into the sunset with your retirement imminent this year.
That's correct. June 30. So little history about the district. The district was formed actually in July of 1999 with the consolidation of the Alto Richardson Bay and Tamalpais Valley Fire Protection Districts. They operated that way for quite some time until they entered into I guess I would call it a management JPA with the city of Sausalito in about, as I understand, around 2009-ish. Well, actually, maybe a little before that. And at the time, Sausalito, 1 to 2 station department, depending on, where they were sort of in their journey. Station 2, of course, up there on the 101, and had times it was staffed and times that it wasn't staffed. But the city of Sausalito, long history, I think, struggling a little bit financially, couldn't really fund the fire department the way that they needed to, or perhaps even wanted to. And then, of course, with the pension liabilities increasing and having an increasing impact on the city budget, discussions occurred between the city and the fire district. And as I said, initially that manifest in roughly a 10-year management JPA. And towards the end of that time, I think the district got to a point where they said, we need to make a decision. We're at a fork in the road here, whether we're going to consolidate or the district is going to extract itself from the management agreement and go its own way, as will the city. There were a number of advocates in the city, not only in the council and the city manager's office, but certainly in the community, that saw consolidation as the right way to go. Consolidation has certainly been a topic of conversation in Marin County for probably the better part of 50 years. And so, under the leadership of Adam Politzer, who was the city manager, Jim Irving, who was the fire chief here, my predecessor, and then, of course, a lot of other very important people, Charlie Francis, the finance director of the city of Sausalito, various council members, and various members of the Southern Marin Fire District, like Battalion Chief Matt Bouchard, were very instrumental in getting the consolidation across the goal line.
Hmm.
I would say that it was not without a lot of difficulty and pain. It was a very controversial proposal. There were advocates for it, and there were those who very vocally opposed it.
Hmm.
So much so that when it went to LAFCO, it actually exceeded the 25% threshold,
Oh.
which then required it to go to the public for a vote. So, as you may know, when you make an application to LAFCO for
Hmm.
consolidation, there is a protest period, gives people the opportunity to submit protests. And under one of the categories, I believe it was the population one, 25% of that threshold was breached. And so that went to the public for a vote. The public ultimately did support it with a majority, but again, not without controversy. But that occurred in 2012.
Okay.
And that was a very significant transition for the department, not only in making the consolidation or annexation, actually, is what it was, permanent, but the merging of cultures, the alignment of the financing that goes on as a part of an annexation, And then I came aboard in 2014, in the fall of 2014, and Chief Irving retired about a month after I arrived. And so the first part of my work was, again, sort of helping to continue to solidify the work that Chief Irving did and that others did.
Hmm.
Not long after I arrived, matter of fact, as part of my application process, I was informed that the district was involved in yet another consolidation, and this one with the city of Mill Valley. And so when I arrived, I learned that it was not nearly as far along as I had heard. A matter of fact, it had only really just begun. And it was more consolidation that was of interest in the district's eyes than the city of Mill Valley's eyes. At that time, the city manager was Jim McCann. Jim didn't really have any interest in pursuing any type of a consolidation, but was interested in saving money through shared services. And so
Okay.
in 2015, we initiated a shared battalion chief agreement. Tom Welch was the fire chief at the time. Tom was an amazing partner, a great friend as well. Consider him one of my closest friends. And Tom and I endeavored for a number of years, about 5 years, in working this agreement through the many, many challenges that it brought. But we saw it as really a part of a longer term process towards consolidation.
Mhm.
And in 2020, we entered into a shared management agreement where we went beyond just battalion chiefs and we actually brought the two fire chiefs into a single structure and then brought the fire prevention teams together into one.
Mhm.
And it wasn't long after that, sometime in that window, don't remember the year exactly, Al Piombo came on as the city manager.
Mhm.
He had been the police chief, and Al was very committed to consolidation. And the stars aligned. The short version of the story is Al did a lot of work on his end, I did a lot of work on my end. We got the stars aligned. And then, of course, we went to the public. We had a community meeting, a joint council board meeting, and we had a lot of support in the community and ultimately went to LAFCO and got approval in the fall of 2022. Actually, final approval in December of 22, but the annexation we made official July 1 of 2023.
Oh.
So that's the short version of how we got to where we're at today.
Mhm.
Um, we're now a five-station department. That's not including headquarters. We lease a building down in the Marin Ship where we have prevention and the admin team. So there's six facilities. But consolidations are still very much in our windshield, ongoing discussions with partner agencies.
Mhm.
Nothing formal in the works, but just conversations between chiefs. I think there's always an interest in looking for opportunities to consolidate when it looks right for both partners.
Mhm. Good, good, good. So what I kind of gleaned out of this was the agencies in Southern Marin initially banded together to provide EMS service through SMEPS,
Correct.
and then a few years later, if I caught this correctly, is you entered shared services agreements with different agencies to share, say, battalion chiefs, and then it evolved into molding your fire prevention programs and your management programs till I would assume till everybody felt comfortable and said, we could probably make this work. Was there? And you mentioned the LAFCO vote in Sausalito and the district side. Now, did both the fire district voters and the Sausalito voters vote on this consolidation?
So yes, the answer to that question is
Okay.
actually, no, excuse me. No, only the Sausalito voters were a part of that because they were voting on whether or not to be annexed by the fire district.
Got it. Now,
Um,
was it similar in Mill Valley? Did you have a similar um, vote of the people, or was that was an agreement between the fire district board and the city of Mill Valley?
No. So the process for these kinds of things in California is that, first of all, you apply to LAFCO for consolidation, but the step prior to that is done at the local level. So it required a vote of both the city as the city and the fire district as the fire district, whether or not to submit an application to LAFCO for consolidation.
Got it.
And that is a result of, after all of the analyses that were done, Citygate ran most of those for us,
Hmm.
where we went to our board, Chief Welch went to the council, laid out the finances, the operational value, the cost savings, all of those things. Each of those bodies independently said, yes, we agree with going to LAFCO. We then submit the entire package to LAFCO. They review it, their board takes a vote, and then ultimately they said yes. Now,
Hmm.
when that occurred, normally, we would have opened up the protest period, but there is an option to waive that. There's risks to doing that, but on a recommendation of our LAFCO director, Jason Freed, he said, I think you guys can waive the protest period because I don't believe there is going to be any protest. And he happened to predict that very accurately. There were zero protests. And matter of fact, when we would talk in the community, a lot of times what we would hear is, oh, we thought you already were consolidated.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's a whole background to that, Chief, as to
Sure.
why I think that was the sentiment in the community. And it really speaks to the importance of the shared service work we did, over roughly that 10-year period.
Sure. So you're leaving this year, and you've given the future chief of Southern Marin, and the community a totally different layout than when you started. I mean, to me, from again, Chris, from the out of an outsider looking in, it's it's better. It seems like the seams between the jurisdictions have been erased, and it seems, from my point of view, is your EMS is tighter, your fire emergency response is tighter, your cost savings is significant. So it looks, from my perspective, you've done a heck. You and your folks have done a heck of a job in Southern Marin and in marrying this all together. In Marin fire history, we go back to the days of the Homestead Fire Department and Marin Ship Fire Department. The county still has a fire station in Marin City. And I understand there's some rumors or some talk or some undercurrents of opening Station Two up on, I call it Station Two, up on Rodeo, up on Highway 101 again, just to enhance public protection. And it'd be amazing if you're able to do that. I know the facility. I heard the facility needs some work, but um, there could be a solid reason for at least during the day providing some state some an engine parked up there, and there again, maybe it's part of the Marin wildfire prevention and response plan.
You are exactly right. We are doing some work in that regard, and some of this was initiated out of the city of Sausalito. A lot of the folks up there on Wolfback Ridge very concerned, of course, about the threats from the GGNRA. The city approached us, citizens group in the community approached us about staffing the station. We
Mhm.
said we don't have that kind of funding,
Yeah.
but we were also at the same time looking at implementing a fuels crew. And we said, look, we would love to base it up there at Station Two because we don't have a facility for that. And through all of these discussions, what came out of it is an agreement between the city and the district. The city is currently working to refurb that facility, bring it back up to livable standards. And we agreed to a lease agreement to that helps the city sort of recoup some of those costs. And again, that would be the base for our fuels crew. Now, the other thing that we have talked about, again, because of the concerns of the residents up there,
Mhm.
is perhaps on red flag days, actually staffing a Type 1 engine up there on those days.
Hmm.
Um, we recognize that with the Marin County Marin City Station, where 1583 is based out of, they actually have a very rapid response to that part of the 101 corridor. And between that and engine one, we think the response time is pretty good, but we recognize that there are still residual concerns, and if we could do any sort of staffing at station two, that would help, I think, sort of reduce some of the concerns from the residents there. So it's a marrying sort of if you will, a number of things coming together that makes sense for a bunch of different reasons.
And we're that's not there yet.
No, so the remodeling will not be done till probably August, perhaps even September. We're in the process with our budget of trying to finalize the funding sources. Some of it from MWPA, some of it from our own Measure U, and then some from our general operating budget.
Nice. Well, that's excellent. It takes
Us
time,
right
Chris.
now, we're a little late to do seasonal hires.
Hmm.
But we've come to an agreement with the association on both the superintendent and the crew boss, which would be coming from our existing staffing, and we would do pay differentials and all that. So we've worked out the labor meet and confer process. It's really getting approval in the 26-27 budget to move forward. And then we can initiate sort of the staffing part of that. We've already been moving forward on the equipment. So the pieces are starting to fall in place slowly, but we have confidence that it'll all come together.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's moving forward in a positive direction, and you
Yeah.
hit a couple of points here. Is um, it is the whole county is under threat of a wildland fire, especially in the interface. We've seen the last 10 or 15 years on devastating fires in our Northern California communities. And I got to congratulate you, Chris, for thinking ahead and moving forward with some of these novel ideas, and maybe not so novel, but they make some of your ideas make total sense. And uh, for us in the community here is how do we put these tools in the toolbox? How do we use them, and how do we fund them going forward? So um, my hat's off to you. I see a lot of good stuff that you've been able to accomplish. And Marin Fire history, it looks back on the great history of Sausalito Fire Department and the great history of Mill Valley, Homestead Valley, Alto Richardson Bay. And here we are today with the Southern Marin Fire District. And hats off and congratulations on your career here in Marin.
Chief, thank you for that. But as in Marin County, our fire chiefs group is a very close group, as you will recall. The partnerships here are absolutely amazing. Maybe it's one of the benefits of being a smaller, county in the state, but one of the things that I've always appreciated is that, of course, everything that we do as an agency is not done, by an individual. It's always done through partnerships and with other folks, whatever those partnerships may be. And the successes that we have had in Southern Marin are in part because of the successes of other fire chiefs here in Marin, their partnerships, their support. Clearly the passing of Measure C that led to MWPA, a collaborative effort, not only from the fire chiefs, but from many of our elected officials throughout the county. I
Mhm.
hate to steal the old line, but it takes a village, right? And that's
Right.
really what we've seen here. And I feel very fortunate to have been a part of the district for the last 11 and a half years, and to have experienced, really what's been an amazing journey, and to work with some absolutely amazing people. It's been a great ride.
Well, thank you, Chris, Chief Tubbs, for joining us today. And for Marin Fire History, Stay safe out there. Enjoy it. Thank you very much for tuning in today.